So you want to get into peated whiskies, but you're not quite sure where to start. Hopefully, I can give you some tips into getting into the world of peat. Hello and welcome to Whiskey Whims with me, Stuart. Today I want to try and give you some tips on how to enjoy peated whiskey, or at least start your journey into peated whiskies, because there's so many peated whiskies. There's the likes of Springbank, which is lightly peated compared to the Long Row of the distillery, which is heavily peated. So you have a lighter peated whiskey. There's even odd occasions such as Ralphie's Own Bottling, this Ben Nevis, which has been peated, which is quite unusual from Ben Nevis. There's Highland Park, which too is lightly peated. Similar, I think Talisker as well can be peated. So they've got a light peating to them, not too overpowering. Then you start to get to the stronger peated whiskies, which are the Islas, Ardbeg and Lagavulin, Laphroaig, and then onto the absurd scale, which is the Octomore, which is extremely peated, very heavily peated, such as the Long Row is heavily peated, the Octomore is on another scale. You also get Kilkerran as well, which are peated, heavily peated, but I do believe that the Octomore range are the most kind of outrageous heavily peated whiskies, or outrageously peated whiskies. So there's a lot of whiskies that you can be missing out on enjoying because you're not really into peat, or you can't seem to overcome the peat fragrance or the peat taste. So I wanted to try and give you 5 tips to get into peat. So number 1 would be try it blind. I'd say get someone to pour you a couple peated whiskies and non-peated whiskies and try them blind. Most likely you're going to pick out from the nose that these whiskies are peated or non-peated. So what I would say is just take your nose out of the equation. Put your fingers over your nose, hold it and take the drink, and then see what happens. Try and enjoy it without the nose, because it might be the nose is too overpowering because of the peat, or it might be the palate that you're not used to. But I would start by trying it blind. Try and take your nose out of the equation, and also just take your time with it. Take it in your mouth and take your time with it. Because once you do overcome the peat fragrance and the kind of hard-hitting peat flavours that you get, it does open a door to so many other flavours behind the peat. And the peat, for me, sometimes peated whiskies, I don't want to say superior, but I feel like peat whiskies, they bring something additional to the table, and the peat is obviously that, but it just gives it that extra kind of oomph, that extra flavour, that extra bit meatiness behind it. That's how I would try and describe it. My second tip would obviously be try lightly peated whiskies. So for instance, the Highland Park 12 is lightly peated, Springbank 10, Springbank 15, some of the Taliskers, and I wouldn't go right into the Isla whiskies. I believe there's another way to get into Isla whiskies, and this will come. I believe going head first into Isla whiskies, well, I wouldn't recommend it. However, some people have done it. Some people just go straight in for Lagavulin or Ardbeg, and they enjoy them straight away. But if you're someone who's not really enjoying peat, then that's not going to happen. I'd try and suggest going for the lighter peated whiskies. I believe Ben Romack do a peat smoke, it's quite lightly peated, and even Bunnahabhain have some lightly peated expressions as well. So Bunnahabhain's obviously an Isla whiskey, but you shouldn't get the overwhelming TCP. Is it TCP? I think it's TCP. The overwhelming kind of medicinal notes of it. So yeah, try lightly peated whiskies first. The third tip would be try these whiskies, or try these peated whiskies in a bar, and try them after you've had maybe 1 or 2 whiskies that you enjoy, just to kind of take the edge off. try whatever core range whiskies are in the supermarket. You're most likely going to get them in a bar or a pub. So I would recommend, try some of your favourite whiskies first, 1 or 2, maybe have a couple pint in between, or maybe not a couple pint, but just 1, 2, a couple pint, 1 or 2 pints, just to take the edge off, and then go into the peated whiskies. That might help. I've tried to get people into whiskey or peated whiskies that way. The peat is still can be overwhelming on the nose, but once you've had a couple introduction whiskies, or what would be the word? Introduction whiskies. See, I can never think of words when I'm in front of the camera. It's not until I get out of the camera that I can think of it. Build up your palate to the peatiness. So start with a couple whiskies just to wet the pipes, and then go into the peated whiskey. Number 4, my 4th tip for getting into peated whiskies, and specifically getting into Islay whiskies, if possible and if convenient, if feasible, whatever, visit Islay. If you visit Islay, there's no way you could come back not liking peated whiskies. It just draws you in. The full island is just covered in peat, so it almost becomes you become used to it. The peat fragrance is in the air. It's always there, and your nose becomes blind to it almost. So when you do come to try some peated whiskies over there, the peat's almost second nature. You almost don't notice it really, because it's in the air. It's everywhere. The place is magical. Everyone there is friendly. All the locals, the people who actually live there, they're all friendly. They're all helpful. It's honestly a magical place. There's no other way to describe it. There's no other way to describe it other than magic. So I would try and get to Islay if possible, and I don't believe you could come back there from Islay not enjoying peated whiskies, or not enjoying Islay whiskies. There will be one you'll find. Do the tours. Look online which tours to do and which tours not to do. There's a few that I would recommend and a few that I wouldn't recommend. So the ones I would recommend, I won't say the ones I wouldn't recommend, but the ones I would recommend would definitely be Bunnahabhain, Bruichladdich, Ardbeg, and probably Bowmore. Bowmore was a good distillery tour, so I would recommend those 4. There are loads of other. I've not seen Ardnahoe yet or anything like that, but there are loads of other distilleries on Islay. There's Bruichladdich, Kilchoman. Yeah, I think we visited Kilchoman. It's got a nice cafe. Obviously Killila, Lagavulin and Lefroy, Port Charlotte. But yeah, there's a lot of Islay whiskey distilleries, so I would say get over to Islay and do the distillery tours, and you should come back an Islay fan. My last and probably most important tip for enjoying peated whiskies or getting into peated whiskies is try not to focus on the peat. Do not focus on the peat. As soon as you focus on that, something you don't like, and it is hard, I've had it before where maybe I've got licorice in a whiskey, and it's become so overwhelming that I've been enjoying the whiskey, but then the licorice flavour comes and I'm just like, no, I hate licorice, and it just hits me, and all I can focus on is that licorice flavour. So I know how it feels. Try not to focus on the peat. Try and, like I said earlier, take your nose out of the equation. Try and maybe have a few whiskies before it just to wet the pipes. Just do anything to take your mind off the peat. Blind is a great way to do it, but obviously, like I said, you'll need to take your nose out of the equation because you will smell it, or most likely smell it. But now when I'm coming to nose peated whiskies or taste peated whiskies, I sometimes almost completely disregard the peat flavour or scent, and I sometimes I'm unable to pick up that this is a peated whiskey. I'll be trying it and I'll be smelling and I'll say, oh, there's this, and then someone will say you forgot about the peat, and it's just because I've got so used to peated whiskies and the smell that I almost just bypass it for some reason. But yeah, that's my 5 tips to enjoy peated whiskies or get into the world of peated whiskies. Hopefully this helps. I'm trying to think. I've managed to get a few friends into peat, and yeah, I think it's also knowing which whiskies to choose in a sense for the person. So the person I helped get into peat, I kind of knew what he was enjoying, what flavours he was enjoying, so I was able to pick out certain whiskies along those lines that had peat in them as well, but also the flavours he enjoyed. So I think that's one way to do it, is maybe look up reviews and check what flavours coincide with your own tastings, the preferred flavours of yourself, or your preferred tasting, and then try and coincide them with the peated whiskies. But hopefully this helps, and hopefully one of these tips will get you into peated whisky. If not, I've tried. I believe everybody should love peat whiskies because they bring so much to the table. So once again, thanks for watching. I've been Stuart. This has been Whiskey Whims. I'll see you later.